Every day, we wake up faced with two invisible choices: to be powered by fear or to be fueled by belief. Most people don't even notice they've made the wrong choice until life starts feeling heavier, smaller. But positive thinking isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about creating the mental conditions that make fine possible. It's about deciding, before the world tells you who you are, that you are capable, resilient, and unstoppable. Because the truth is, your thoughts are not just reflections of your life. They are the architects of it. The moment you shift your focus from what's missing to what's possible, everything, absolutely everything, begins to change. The greatest battles men fight are rarely visible. They don't happen in boardrooms, battlefields, or locker rooms. They begin in the quiet chaos of the mind. Every man carries an internal dialogue that either builds him or breaks him, and the world only ever sees the outcome. The man who wins outside is usually the one who has already conquered himself inside. The challenge isn't always the situation, it's the story we keep telling ourselves about it. Men are wired to solve, to fix, to act. Yet the modern man often faces a war that can't be fixed with action alone. It's the war between he is and who he thinks he should be. Every expectation, be stronger, be successful, be in control, becomes a whisper that turns into pressure. And that pressure often breeds negativity disguised as realism. A man might tell himself he's being practical, but beneath that word hides a quiet fear of failure, rejection, or not being enough. When the mind accepts that fear as truth, the external world starts mirroring it in brutal accuracy. From a woman's perspective, watching a man battle his own thoughts can feel like standing in front of a locked door. You can hear the storm, but you can't get inside. Women often see the potential that men are too hard on themselves to acknowledge. They sense when he's not fighting the world, but his own reflection. And yet, even their encouragement can't break through unless a man decides to shift his inner conversation. That's the real power of positive thinking. Not to deny the struggle, but to reframe the story playing on repeat. Men often misunderstand positivity as weakness. They think it's blind optimism, a refusal to face reality. But true positive thinking is discipline. It's the act of choosing focus over fear, strategy over self-doubt. It's saying, I'm not ignoring the challenge, I'm deciding how I'll meet it. Every great man in history didn't just have courage, he had conviction in his thoughts. He trained his mind to see possibility even in chaos. That's not positivity. It's mental leadership. When a man's inner narrative changes, his entire energy changes. The tone of his voice, the way he walks into a room, the decisions he makes, all begin to align with that new belief system. Confidence isn't loud, it's consistent. It comes from mastering the mental battlefield, not from pretending the war doesn't exist. And when a woman sees that transformation, it's not just attractive, it's magnetic. Because what draws people in isn't the absence of struggle, it's the presence of self-command. The truth is, most men don't lose because they lack skill or opportunity. They lose because they surrender their thoughts too early. They let negative thinking drain their potential before life even tests it. The battle of the mind is the rehearsal for the life you lead. If that inner voice keeps repeating defeat, no amount of external victory will ever feel like enough. But when that voice learns to speak possibility, every challenge becomes fuel, not friction. Belief is the foundation upon which every man builds his life, often without realizing it. It's invisible, but it shapes everything he touches. The way he speaks, the way he walks, the choices he makes when no one's watching. A man's belief system is the architecture of his destiny. It defines how high he aims, how deeply he loves, and how fiercely he fights. The tragedy is that most men spend years trying to change their circumstances without ever changing what they believe about themselves. A man who doesn't believe he deserves success will sabotage it the moment it appears. He'll call it timing, luck, or bad fate. But deep down, it's the quiet disbelief that whispers, "You're not ready for this." Belief is not about arrogance. It's about alignment. It's the internal permission that says, "I belong here." When that permission is missing, even the most talented man becomes hesitant, defensive, or uncertain. You can hand him every opportunity in the world. But if his belief doesn't match it, he'll find a way to shrink back into safety. From a woman's perspective, belief is one of the most magnetic traits a man can have. It's not his achievements that draw her. It's his conviction. She doesn't just want to see what he's done. She wants to feel that he trusts himself to do it again and again and again. Women sense belief the same way they sense tension. It's in the tone of a man's silence, the steadiness of his gaze, the way he stands even when everything around him is uncertain. She's not drawn to perfection. She's drawn to presence. And presence is born from belief. Most men confuse belief with proof. They think they need evidence before they can have faith in themselves. But that's not how belief works. Belief precedes evidence. It creates it. The moment a man starts believing he can, his actions start aligning with that conviction. He speaks differently. He prepares differently. He refuses to quit because quitting no longer fits the story he tells himself. Every great transformation begins when a man decides to believe before there's reason to. That's not blind faith. It's vision. But belief doesn't grow in comfort. It's forged in the tension between who you are and who you're becoming. A man builds belief by keeping promises to himself, by facing rejection and showing up again anyway. That's where quiet confidence is born, in the small, unseen moments when no one's applauding. And that's also where women notice the difference between a man who's performing confidence and a man who's living it. The former needs validation. The latter radiates certainty. When a man chooses to believe, the world begins to rearrange itself around that decision. He starts attracting the kind of energy that matches his conviction. People begin to respond differently, not because they've changed, but because his inner certainty alters the way they see him. Belief is a silent force, but it's contagious. It moves without sound, yet it speaks louder than words ever could. Most people mistake optimism for denial, as if seeing the good means ignoring the truth. But real optimism is not about escaping reality. It's about designing it. It's the mindset that turns chaos into clarity and uncertainty into opportunity. For a man, optimism isn't a luxury, it's a strategic advantage. It's the difference between reacting to life and leading it. When a man chooses optimism, he's not pretending everything's fine. He's preparing his mind to find solutions before the world hands him excuses. Men are conditioned to be protectors, to anticipate what could go wrong. That instinct is valuable, but left unchecked, it breeds chronic skepticism. It teaches men to see every situation through a lens of defense instead of direction. And that's where optimism becomes powerful. Not because it ignores risk, but because it reframes it. The optimistic man still sees the problem. He just refuses to make it bigger than his potential to solve it. His outlook becomes strategy, a tool for navigating challenges, instead of being consumed by them. From a woman's perspective, optimism in a man communicates something deeper than positivity. It communicates trust. She doesn't just hear hope in his words, she feels safety in his calm. When a man can hold optimism, even in uncertainty, he signals strength without aggression. He shows that he's capable of leading through the storm without letting fear dictate his actions. To her, that's not naïve, it's emotional intelligence. It's a kind of grounded confidence that says, I see the worst that could happen, and I still choose to believe in what can be built. Optimism becomes strategy when it shapes decisions. A man who thinks optimistically doesn't waste energy on proving how hard things are. He invests it in finding leverage. He knows that negativity narrows perspective while optimism expands it. It gives him more options, more insight, more control. It's not about being cheerful. It's about being clear. The mind functions best when it's not burdened by fear, and optimism clears that space. It's a mental discipline that sharpens performance, deepens resilience, and builds momentum. Every man who leads effectively, whether in business, in family, or within himself, knows that people don't follow pessimism. They follow hope that feels possible. Optimism is contagious because it changes how people feel about what they're doing. It brings direction where doubt used to live. When a man leads with optimism, he creates a sense of motion even when progress feels invisible. He turns potential into action simply by choosing to see beyond the obstacle in front of him. But optimism demands courage. It asks a man to risk believing when the evidence is thin. It challenges him to choose possibility over protection, creativity over control. And that's why it's strategic. It builds momentum from belief. Women recognize it, men respect it, and teams respond to it because optimism is leadership in its purest form, the ability to see the way forward before the path is visible. Every man is building something, whether he knows it or not. Some are building businesses, some are building families, but all are building realities from the thoughts they repeat most often. Thoughts are not background noise, they're blueprints. They design the way we live, love, and lead. The problem is, most men think their thoughts are harmless, passing clouds that drift in and out. But every thought leaves a trace. Every internal sentence becomes part of the structure that either supports you or traps you. The man who doesn't control his thoughts ends up living in a house he never meant to build. Men are often taught to focus on action, to move, to produce. But what drives every action is a thought, an internal belief that defines what's possible. A man who constantly tells himself he's not enough will find proof of it everywhere he looks. He'll make decisions from a place of limitation, not logic. The mind doesn't question the blueprint, it just follows the design. And when that design is built on fear, failure, or comparison, no amount of hard work can build something strong. Real strength begins when a man learns to architect his thinking as intentionally as he builds his goals. From a woman's perspective, the quality of a man's thoughts can be felt long before they're heard. She can sense whether his energy comes from peace or pressure, whether his confidence is genuine or rehearsed. A man who has mastered his thoughts carries a calm authority, a sense of groundedness that doesn't need to dominate to feel strong. His presence says, I've built stability inside myself. That stability doesn't come from charm or status. It comes from clarity. A woman can't trust a man who's at war with his own mind because instability leaks. It shows up in how he communicates, reacts, and connects. Every man must learn that thinking is not passive. It's creative. The thoughts you allow shape the choices you make, and those choices become the evidence of your reality. When a man starts to treat his thoughts tools instead of noise, he becomes intentional with what he builds. He notices when he's constructing walls instead of bridges, when he's designing excuses instead of outcomes. The difference between the man who leads and the man who lags isn't talent. It's the quality of the mental blueprint they follow. But blueprints can be redrawn. The beauty of thought is that it's flexible, trainable. A man can rewire his internal dialogue by questioning the thoughts that limit him and reinforcing the ones that align with who he wants to become. That's where true transformation begins. Not in what he does, but in what he repeatedly believes. And when that shift happens, it doesn't just change how he performs, it changes how he perceives himself. From that point on, every decision, every relationship, every victory stems from a single, silent truth: your thoughts are not echoes of your life. They're the designs of it. Negativity spreads faster than truth. It moves through rooms, through conversations, through energy. One man's self-doubt can infect an entire team, an entire family, an entire relationship. That's how powerful it is, because emotions, just like ideas, are contagious. The words we speak, the tone we use, the posture we carry, they transmit what we believe. For men, negativity often disguises itself as realism, a way of staying grounded. But most of the time, it's fear dressed in logic. And when fear becomes the dominant voice in a man's mind, everything he touches starts to shrink. His ambition, his confidence, his connection to others. A man who carries negativity doesn't even have to speak it for others to feel it. You can sense it in the way he enters a room, the way he hesitates before an opportunity, the way he subtly prepares for failure even before trying. Negativity is self-protective. It tells him, If I expect the worst, I won't be disappointed. But that mindset doesn't protect, it imprisons. It keeps him safe from risk, but also safe from growth. The tragedy is that he doesn't realize the people around him, his partner, his children, his colleagues, absorb that same energy. What begins as his internal defense becomes everyone else's emotional atmosphere. From a woman's perspective, negativity in a man feels heavy. She can feel when his hope has gone quiet, when his language turns from creation to complaint. Women are deeply intuitive. They pick up on shifts in tone that men often overlook. When a man's thoughts are ruled by negativity, she doesn't just hear it. She feels it in how present he is, how inspired he becomes, how he shows up. What she truly wants to feel from him isn't perfection or endless positivity. It's courage. She wants to feel that he still believes, even when things are uncertain. Because courage, unlike negativity, doesn't drain. It ignites. Courage is contagious in the same way. When a man chooses courage over comfort, it gives permission for others to do the same. His energy becomes a signal, a reminder that strength isn't the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward in spite of it. Courage doesn't roar, it resonates. It creates a different kind of atmosphere, one that invites people to rise, not retreat. You can see it in teams that follow a leader who refuses to fold under pressure, or in a partner who stands taller because the man beside her refuses to give up. Courage multiplies the moment it's expressed. Negativity shrinks possibility. Courage expands it. The difference is choice. Every man faces moments when he feels the pull of doubt, frustration, or failure. The mind always offers an easier option: to stay small, to stay silent, to stay safe. But when he chooses courage, something changes inside him. His language shifts from, "What if it doesn't work?" to, "What if it does?" That shift alters his entire trajectory. People begin to respond differently because courage inspires trust. It says, "I may not have all the answers, but I'm willing to face the unknown." Every man must understand that the energy he carries is contagious. If he spreads doubt, he creates more of it. If he spreads courage, he becomes a catalyst for strength in everyone around him. And while negativity drains, courage builds. It builds momentum, connection, and belief. When a man learns to be the source of courage instead of the echo of fear, he doesn't just change his mindset. He changes his environment, one conversation, one decision, one brave act at a time. Everything in a man's life begins to change the moment his thinking does. The world doesn't respond to who he wishes to be. It responds to what he truly believes himself to be. A man's mindset is not a mirror reflecting his circumstances. It's a magnet attracting them. When he shifts his thoughts from doubt to direction, from scarcity to purpose, the world rearranges itself around that new frequency. The truth is, the external world is just an echo world, is just an echo of the internal one. You don't chase success, you become someone success wants to be around. Most men spend years trying to fix their surroundings without ever confronting the source. The way they think, they change jobs, cities, relationships, even appearances, but they keep carrying the same thoughts that created their dissatisfaction in the first place. It's like repainting a cracked wall without repairing the foundation. Nothing truly changes until the mind does. When a man begins to understand that his thoughts are instructions to reality, he stops fighting the world and starts designing it. The difference between frustration and fulfillment is the quality of the thinking that precedes them. Men are taught to value control, but the most powerful control they can ever master is over their own perspective. The man who learns to shift how he thinks doesn't need everything to go his way. He learns to make a way regardless of what happens. That's not denial, that's mental leadership. When his thoughts become aligned with vision instead of validation, he becomes unstoppable. Suddenly, obstacles become information instead of intimidation. His focus moves from what's missing to what's possible, and that single mental shift changes how the world treats him. From the woman's perspective, that kind of mindset is magnetic. She's drawn not to the man who has it all figured out, but to the one who refuses to be defeated by what he can't yet see. She notices the difference between a man who's reactive and who's reflective. When his thoughts are grounded in possibility instead of panic, she feels it in the way he listens, the way he plans, the way he holds space for her. It's not that he never struggles. It's that his struggle doesn't consume him. His thinking creates calm in chaos, and that calm feels like safety. That's the kind of man whose energy makes the world chase him back. The world mirrors the way a man thinks. When he's focused on lack, he attracts scarcity. When he's focused on growth, he attracts opportunity. People sense the difference immediately. The man who complains about what's wrong pushes others away, while the man who speaks about what can be built pulls them in. It's not magic, it's resonance. Thought creates tone, and tone creates tribe. Every man becomes the environment he carries in his head. If his thoughts are heavy, life becomes heavy. If his thoughts are intentional, life starts moving toward him instead of away from him. Changing your thinking isn't about becoming positive for the sake of positivity. It's about aligning your mind with the reality you want to live in. It's the discipline of refusing to think small when your purpose is big. The man who understands this doesn't chase outcomes. He cultivates the mindset that draws them in. His energy changes. His language evolves. His posture communicates possibility. And when the world feels that shift, it begins to respond. Opportunities appear where there were none. People connect who once ignored him. Doors open that used to stay closed. Because the truth is simple yet profound. When a man changes how he thinks, the world doesn't stay still. It adjusts, it reacts, it starts chasing him back.